Rowdy more. Oh, right, okay. Peter Salt, are you with us?
Yeah, and finally.
Peter, well done. Delighted to see you. So welcome, and the floor is yours.
Right. Yeah, I'm sort of a little bit against the freedom camping. It hasn't really affected me, but I feel sorry for people that have got properties that are on the beachfront and in places like the reserves in Montar where freedom camping is allowed. And I've used the last long weekend was Labour weekend, and when we were down there, people were there and they just stayed all day. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming the poor lady that's the bylaws officer. She can't be everywhere, but it is going to keep happening. And like other people want to get access to the beach, the place was completely blocked up. I'm a little bit confused when you read things and people say it's a money thing for the district, but then I'm now confused with the council and what they're wanting to do with like the charges to boat ramps and to water charges and all the rest of it. Whereas I would probably argue that the boat ramp, every person on that boat ramp that went in there would spend a lot more in the towns than what a freedom camper would spend, a lot more. And I'm just concerned that for other businesses that are paying rates, why can't we be using those or use the dock camping ground, or otherwise if the council want to have something out of town where they can do it, but not in the best.
Right, okay. Is that the key concern of your submission, Peter?
Yeah, no, I've lost the rest of it because I was walking and I lost the whole thing, so I've had to just sort of...
But what you're talking about is the loss of the local ratepayers' amenity to external visitors that you all enjoy, but they actually, when they occupy the site, that they change that amenity for the locals. Is that what you're saying, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it is. The locals can't get in and use those in those areas. And as I say, if I had a house on the beachfront, and I haven't got a house on the beachfront, and I was paying good rates, which they are paying more, which is fair enough. I'm not arguing about any of that. But would I really want someone in front of my house or beside me paying nothing and enjoying the facility? I mean, go down and enjoy the facility, but not to stay there, you know?
But I'm sure even though you might not be on a beachfront property, do you go down and enjoy those facilities anyway?
Yes, I do all the time. Yep.
Yeah. So it's not about location, it's about having the amenity available to the community as a whole.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it is, yeah. Yeah.
Any questions for Peter? Thank you, Peter. Thank you for taking the time to come and share your view, because it is really important and we do appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Peter. Right, so Warren's not going to, is Warren with us?
Yes, Warren's available.
Oh, Warren. Yeah. Warren.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Fire away.
Okay, I guess I've watched carefully the Island View campground area, or Freedom Camping area, probably since it first came in a few years ago. We are directly across the reserve, 223 Rangi. So I'll probably highlight my points. Firstly, the Island View area and that 2 access points by that car park have become, very, very busy. particularly over the past sort of 5 years. Probably this summer's been one of the busier summers we've seen. That part of the beach is now what I would consider to be very popular by families with young kids, with the safety of the water there. That car park, which is now probably got an area of about 4 or 5, I guess, spots for camper vans, has become extremely congested. There are health and safety items or matters that I think are concerning with the size of some of the vans that are there. The council changed that car park about 6 years ago, and in fact made the car park smaller than what it used to be. So I think that there's a concern there. I have to say I pick up rubbish in that car park every day for my 4 weeks over the summer holiday. Christmas and New Year's Eve in particular, there was totally diabolical, completely out of control. There was 85 cars / camper vans parked around that Island View car park on New Year's Eve. The top car park was littered in broken glass. It was like a war zone. It really was. So I think there are congestion issues there at the moment, with it being dedicated for camper vans overnight. It's not overly monitored very well, and I feel very sorry for the lady that has to do it. And I've spoken to her on a couple of occasions, and it's quite tough for her. I think the crux of my submission, moving it to the top car park, which I must say was actually that was installed and developed, that car park at the time that the playground was put in, and that car park is actually dedicated, and there's plenty of signage there that was put in by the council, and they put a little footpath that goes from the car park through to the playground as well. So the idea of that car park was to provide a car park for disabled people, for families with prams, and for the elderly. So I'm a little bit confused why the council is now going to allocate that car park for camper vans when that was never the purpose of that car park. That top car park is significantly smaller. In fact, I have measured the two car parks. The depth of the top car park is 11 metres versus the bottom car park, which is 14.5 metres. Once you start putting camper vans in there, in the top car park, there will be no parking for anyone else. And so that effectively that whole car park will be dominated by camper vans. You're also looking at increasing the size of the camper van, or the area that's allocated for camper vans. That's going to be, the bottom car park is about 14.5 metres long, and the new car park up the top is going to be about 29 metres. So it's going to be totally congested. You're using up a car park that was never built for camper vans. So yeah, I have some concerns about that, and we've had occasions where I wake up in the morning, go over there to walk the dog, and rather than 4 camper vans, which are within the two signs, there's often 15 or 20 camper vans that are parked there. As I say, it's tough for one lady to try and monitor it as well. So there are probably areas within Whangamata that probably are better suited and better purposed for camper vans. I think we are using an area that is created and provided for families. You walk down there and the camper vanners are washing their dishes in an area that people want to have a shower in when they come back from the beach. And, there are people there, they're literally washing their hair, they're having showers, they're washing their dishes out. We've got a rat issue at the moment there, simply because of the amount of rubbish that's left behind. The council has had to provide wheelie bins now, and there's a lot of services that you guys are paying for to provide these camper vanners with what is considered to be probably one of the best spots in Whangamata, and we've got camper vanners that are getting it free of charge. So that's a side issue, but I think that my submission is more about moving it from where it is at the moment up to the top car park, and I'm surprised that the council are doing that. It was never purposed for that for camper vans. So those are some of my major concerns.
Can I just ask you, Warren, where else would you see them going in Whangamata if you took them away from these beachfront sites? Where else could they go?
Oh, look, I think you've got areas. There are areas probably in the commercial area of town. I know that you guys have a large site that was used by the BMX people opposite the skate ring. There's an area there. I just don't believe that it's up to council to give Freedom campers the best spot in town. I really don't. When you've got other people, you've got ratepayers probably paying 25 grand of rates to be on the beachfront, and these guys are given a free run. And it's in a car park that should be used by people that want to go to the beach. There's several times over summer where families cannot even park in that car park because it's dominated by camper vans, and I just don't think that's fair on families that are wanting to go to the beach. And there are other locations. You've got outside or behind, you could create a larger site in behind where the information centre is. There's quite a large car park there that the council own. I think if the council started to look at some of the areas and land that they actually owned around town, there are other locations that can be used that don't interfere with your ratepayers, basically.
Okay. Any questions of Warren? So it'd be fair to say, Warren, that you would see the use of this particular site as interfering with the community amenity.
I think there's two. I guess there's two areas to my objection. One is moving it up to the top car park, which that car park was never designed for that purpose, and it's too small. And then the second part is that whole car park area is very busy now, and it's dominated at peak times with camper vans. The other option is that camper vans are only allowed in there, or where it is at the moment, for from 4 p.m. once people have effectively left the beach, or 5 p.m. through until 8 a.m. and then they only get a limited time. But we're getting people that are parking up for 2 or 3 days there. It's a wonderful spot, and if I had an RV, you'd go, well, that's a great spot to be. And I think it's been taken advantage of. It's not purposed for that area, and it's in a very, very busy area that is used by families, and you've got a lot of children run up there and they want to go to the toilet or whatever, and you've got a whole lot of camper vans there, and you physically cannot move your cars with those camper vans being there. It just does not work. And I think if people took the time to go and have a look at it during the day, they would agree with me.
Warren,
Gary?
Just the toilets, you mentioned the toilets. Have you had problems with the toilets because of the Freedom campers?
Look, we've been at our place for 25 years now. I know you're looking at an upgrade on those toilets, and that's fine. But when you go up to wash your feet, when you've come back from the beach, and there's someone washing their hair, having a full shower in front of you, and they're basically washing their young kids out of camper vans, it's not a great sight. There are many people in the camper van has washed their dishes there, so you get food scraps left behind. And the council's been in there several times over the holidays trying to tidy the whole thing up. And I think there's just additional costs that are being incurred by the council that they should not be incurring.
I think one thing, Warren, is that you don't have to use the toilets because you have your own close by, but I know that I got a lot of calls, and when they inspected, toilets were completely blocked up and couldn't be used by anyone over the
Yeah, well, that happened. I remember last summer, sorry, the summer before, where the council were there quite a lot with their contractors unblocking toilets and trying to tidy it all up. So it's just, you know, people go to the beach, they just want to have a nice time and park in the car park, and at the moment it's chaos, you know, it really is.
Thank you, Warren. Really appreciate you taking the time to share your concerns with us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We appreciate it as well. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Philip?
Hi, is that unmuted now?
Yes, you're welcome, Philip.
I'm just struggling to hear you guys a bit. It's coming through crystal clear from the other guests, but we're struggling to hear the committee members. My points really are related to health and safety and to giving access, or the best possible access, to the use of the council facilities at that part of the town. And health and safety, this has become busy enough down below at the car park that's currently being used, and I think we're going to try to shift the location of those campers and vans and station wagons and caravans up to the upper car park. You're going to accommodate either fewer people or much more confined space, because it's a very small car park in terms of manoeuvring compared to the lower car park. I think you're going to have even more of a health and safety issue than you've got now. I asked if someone could print off a couple of photos taken in February this year for the committee members. Do you know if that's been circulated?
There's been some photos circulated.
Right. Thank you for. I happened to be over there on a Friday morning in the middle of February. It wasn't a long weekend. It's not a weekend day. It's just early in the morning on 12th of February. Nothing special about it. And I looked out. We've got a place in Island View Road. Looked across the road, and it was looking pretty much as it usually does. There were 9 camper vans, station wagons. The caravan that had been there the previous day had gone. And this is not one of the busy days at all. This is just a Friday in any week in February. And as you can see, there's no room by 7:30 in the morning. There's no room for anybody else to use that car park. You won't be able to move a camper van or one of the other vans in and out comfortably if you've got other parking near there. It's totally dominated by the overnighters by 7, and this is at 7:30 in the morning. No one's come or gone. And that's a pretty typical morning down there. It's absolutely chock-a-block with the camper vans. And okay, I don't have a problem with camper vans having a spot in town, but I think if you're going to try and move up to that top car park, you're going to create nothing but bigger problems. The other car park, the top car park, enters and exits straight out onto Island View. It's not at the end of the road like this is. You can at least manoeuvre down this end of the road. You have got the stand-up paddleboard and kayak people throughout the 5 months of the year at that end of the road as well, but that manages to work okay. Just if you move up to that top car park, you're going to have the spill of traffic in and out straight onto Island View Road, very much at the intersection with Pippi Road. So it's going to be in a worse position for access, and there's no real connection between that reserve car park, the top car park, and the toilet block. And the camper vanners, they arrive and they can see the toilet block. They know where it is and they will use it. If you've got people in the top car park who haven't been there before, the toilets aren't even visible, and you can be 100% sure a lot of people just aren't going to bother trying to find the toilets. A lot of them actually don't have their own toilet facilities in the vans. If you look at the photographs, you can see that 2 of the vehicles that have been there overnight are station wagons, some are very small vans, these aren't really self-contained campers at all. They'll all have a sticker on them that says certified. They either won't have the toilets in them or they're not going to use them. They need to be able to see the toilet block, which they can at the lower car park, so they can go and use it. There's no bushes or anything near the lower car park to tempt people to use it either. You go to the upper car park and there's planting and bushes right beside it. And I can guarantee you now there'll be a whole stack of people won't see the toilets. They'll be there for a night or two, use the bushes. It's already happening now in the lower car park and in the upper car park when they're not meant to be doing that. And I just can't see that you're going to avoid a bigger health and safety issue and a bigger public behaviour issue right in the face of people coming and going to the beach. It's one of the busier beach accesses in town. And I think one of the other neighbours, Deborah, has presented a series of photos on the busy days when there might be 40 vehicles parked up and down that street, a whole lot of them overnighters, in addition to the 9 or 10 that you get on a typical night. The one thing that I was struggling with in getting a submission together was not knowing the reasons why there was a proposed shift to the top car park. Is anyone able to help me there?
No, we don't answer your questions, you answer ours.
We haven't
Did you hear that, Philip?
Yeah, I did hear that. We haven't been given an explanation of what the reason is for moving to the top car park, and I presume you guys have been told, but we haven't.
Carry on. Are there any comments further comments you want to make around that?
Pardon?
Are there any further points you wish to make?
No, sorry, I'm just getting a very broken sound through on that.
Are there any further points you wish to make?
Well, I was just hoping to be able to respond to the reasons that have been given for shifting to the top car park.
Okay, so we'll respond back to your submission. So are there any further points? If there are none, we'll move on.
No, really it's about the health and safety issues that are going to become clearly worse, and the public behaviour issues and the removal of access to the playground. That was a dedicated car park for the playground, very well connected with it, and if you put that all into camper vans, and believe me, it will all be in camper vans, that's gone as an access to the playground for which that car park was actually installed in the first place. The playground.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Are there any questions of Philip? There being none. Really appreciate that, Philip, and the emphasis on the fact that the car park was for the benefit of the children using the playground. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you for the time.
Thank you, Philip. Sorry about that, the sound was a bit awkward for him, obviously, it's just not quite connected. So I'll just move on to the next person. And is that James Inler? James, hi. Can you hear us all right?
Can you guys hear me? Yes, I can hear you fine, thank you.
You're fine. Go right ahead.
Good.
Welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you guys today remotely. Look, I'm conscious that we've been given 5 minutes to present our submission, so I'll get straight to the point. But I just want to touch on a couple of points that were made by an earlier submitter. It sounds like some of the pressure, at least in part, that the local community are experiencing might be a result of a fairly successful marketing campaign that we've worked in partnership with Council over the last few years to promote the region to our members and to motorhomes and self-contained vehicles. And so perhaps there's a way that we can work a bit closer with the Council's comms team around that marketing collateral so that we are getting those right messages out there on what to do and how to look after these places that we've got the privilege to freedom camp at. I'd also just like to state, motorhomes generally don't go freedom camping because it's free of charge. It's about the experience and the freedom to travel. And look, I understand the council there's a bit of a balancing act here, but just keep in mind when you do deliberate on the bylaw and discuss, you know, what's the benefit to the community and what is the cost to the community, that we do have well over 2,000 members who are ratepayers in your community anyway, and they do, from the feedback we've received, they do enjoy freedom camping in their own backyard. So they are.
Hello, you're frozen.
Can you hear me? I just lost connection there for some reason.
Yeah, no, that's right, you're back.
All right. So I was just saying, yeah, look, appreciate the point, you know, that it does come to a cost. It is a cost to the community, but also just keep in mind that a lot of our members do live in your community and do want the opportunity to still be able to freedom camp in their own backyard. The only concern that we had with the proposal that our members told us about was the plan to remove the only designated site at Buffalo Beach. A lot of our members thought that was, you know, it's an important area for them to be able to freedom camp. And if the council thinks that the current site's not fit for purpose, then we'd just like the council to consider potentially relocating that site somewhere else so that there is actually a place people can freedom camp in that area. One of the submitters has gone to some lengths to try and argue that local authorities and the Department of Conservation cannot lawfully use or refer to the New Zealand standard and enforce those restrictions around freedom camping. And well, this has become a bit of a hot topic lately on social media and through other local authority bylaw discussions, but I just want to reassure the council that those claims aren't correct. And we have, in partnership with Local Government New Zealand, just recently obtained some very clear legal advice from Simpson Grierson that reiterates local authorities can absolutely refer to the standard in their bylaws and enforce those restrictions accordingly. So I was asked by staff for comment on that submission, and I just want to reiterate the point that, you know, we don't believe there's any substance to the claims that that other submitter has made around the legal status of the standard. And the final point I just want to make is if there is any proposal from council to amend the bylaw even further, i.e. introducing more prohibited areas that weren't currently within scope of the current proposal, we just ask the council to carefully consider whether those proposals need to be reconsulted on before making decisions on them. And I just would like to point out to the council that we've had issues with other local authorities making some major changes to their original proposals that were outside the scope of the original proposal. And we've decided to take one of those local authorities to court, the Marlborough District Council, because we don't feel that they followed the process properly. And we felt that they had a duty to engage or consult the public again by making those additional changes to their proposed bylaw. So that's what I wanted to get in 5 minutes. If you've got any questions, happy to answer them.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask a few questions around that, if I may. You've asked us to reconsider. What's the premise for wanting us to reconsider?
What do you mean by reconsider, sorry?
Why do you want us to reconsider reducing or changing any of the current sites?
If we do, we need to consult.
Yeah. What I was getting at, sorry, is that if the council decides after it hears the submissions that it wants to prohibit more areas, for example, than what was originally proposed, it is our view that the council should reconsult on those rather than just making the decision, because that's an issue that we've found with a number of other local authorities where they've put out a proposal and then after they've heard submissions, they've made further changes to that proposal that we haven't had an opportunity to comment on. And so all we're suggesting is that the council should carefully look at whether it has an obligation to reconsult or not. Obviously, it will depend on how far you go, but certainly we feel if you're going to make some major changes to your proposal, it should be reconsulted on. Okay,
I understand that. So why do you think that there should be a preference for freedom camping on prime amenity sites of local communities?
Well, at the end of the day, a lot of the feedback we're getting from our members is that coastal locations are the preferred areas for people to go freedom camping.
Well, there's also very important area. Sorry, yeah, okay. No, Sally, you're right, putting me up on that. Do you not see those as being important areas for communities for their own amenity.
I certainly think that if the council feels that Freedom Campers are putting too much pressure on those areas under the criteria that the legislation sets out, then it should absolutely look at restricting or potentially prohibiting those areas. But like I said at the beginning of my submission, it's a bit of a balancing act here. I mean, at the end of the day, there aren't a lot of places where people can go freedom camping that they want to in the Coromandel. And so if you're suggesting that all the coastal locations should be off limits, then where else are people able to go freedom camping?
They can always come.
Well, James, just following on from your last answer then, on the pressure put on, have you ever had a look at Buffalo Beach Road car park when the pressure was on January, February?
So not during that time of the year, but I've been there many times myself and seen people freedom camping.
No, my question was very specific. Have you had a look at January, February, when you see all the washing all over the footpath and people can't walk over the footpath? Have you ever seen that?
So if I can answer,
I just want to know what your answer is.
I'm trying to answer, but you keep interrupting me. So I have not seen what the pressure is like over that time of the year.
Thank you.
Don't we have a problem, James, that the legislation, and Justice Cooper referred to it, is pretty lightweight, and it's a lot of guesswork. It's not spelled out what this legislation really is about. It was put in a rush because of the Rugby World Cup, and I think that needs to be fixed up, and there's talk about that. But at present, it's just very confusing, and that's probably why you took the court case to on the definition on one aspect. And as Justice Cooper said, normally there's a preamble and sets it out. It's not there at all.
So what's your question, sorry?
Well, at the moment, we're really relying on bad legislation. In the end, we need to have it spelled out properly so we know what our powers are and what your rights are.
Well, I don't know what the question is, but I guess my response to that would be, I don't think Justice Cooper made any suggestion that the legislation was unclear. But at the end of the day, we're all working under the same piece of legislation. And, you know, I'm here representing 104,000 Kiwis, over 2,500 of whom are also your ratepayers. So it's not just me telling the council this is what I want. I'm trying to convey to you what all of our members are wanting. We're not asking for free-for-all. We're not suggesting the council's doing anything wrong. Just in terms of this proposal that you put out, all we've suggested, and keep in mind, we've supported all the other proposals that you've put in place, that when it comes to Buffalo Beach, if there's an opportunity to relocate the designated site somewhere else along Buffalo Beach, we would welcome that opportunity, because the members that live in your district have said to us they still value the opportunity of freedom camp in that area.
Can I ask, if a site was found in approximate the same location as that provided by Hoppers Development, you wouldn't find that satisfactory?
It's quite hypothetical.
I don't quite understand what you mean by that.
Currently, the motor vanners have access to a site provided by Hoppers Developments, right?
We do, yes, and we're very grateful for
So
that.
if we find another site for the motor vanners in the same area and not at Buffalo Beach, you're saying that's not satisfactory? It's beachfront or nothing?
I wasn't saying that at all. What I was saying, and I don't understand why the
So the question would be, would that be satisfactory?
Look, what I'm trying to say is that our members have made it clear to us that they still value the opportunity to freedom camp on Buffalo Beach. And I know that we've used that site before for events as well. So we're just saying, if there's an opportunity to relocate that designated area, we'd be more than open to discussing those options. If the council's of the view that there's absolutely no opportunity to move that site, the whole area has to be prohibited, well, then that's the council's decision. But then the question we would ask is, where else do you think people can freedom camp? Now, I think the point you're trying to make is, you've got a Hoppers site, what's the problem? Well, you know, as we really appreciate what hoppers have done for us and the opportunity that's there, but I'm sure the council is aware that that agreement can cease to exist at any time.
And that's why I asked you, if we found an equivalent site in the same area that was dedicated, would that be satisfactory?
Well, we haven't asked our local members if that's the case, but I would imagine that if you found an equivalent site to the one we're talking about at Buffalo Beach, then I'm sure that people would be.
No, I'm not talking about Buffalo Beach.
Yeah.
Okay, look, thank you. Are there any further points you want to make at all?
No, that's all.
Thank you, James. Appreciate that. It's very difficult when, can I say, I find the Motor Vanners Association members incredibly positive, incredibly caring about the environment, and do a good job in helping to protect areas. And so they aren't necessarily the problem that we have to endure. So just thought I'd put it out there. We actually appreciate your members.
Thank you. I'll pass that message on. Cheers.
Thank you, if you could. So thank you, everybody. We've got one more now, I think. We have one more.
Michael Stimson.
Michael
Stimson is supposed to be attending in person, and he hasn't come up.
So we're just
not
going
a contact number for him either. So
What time was his appointment?
his appointment was during this time slot, which is the 12:20 to 12:45. So in actual fact, it's gone over that time. So I would say he's a no-show.
Yeah.
all right, so do we close the meeting?
No, I'd like if you could move to hear receive the report and to receive the late submissions.
Okay, so you
That one.
move Sally, seconded John. So this is to move the report and move the late submissions. Martin, is this?
No, I just wanted to ask a further question, but we can do.
So we deal with the
the report
subject.
then too.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Martin?
I just wanted to ask Brian, so we've heard from various submitters that the problem is the European and
Let's do
overseas.
online.
I think this is probably all right. That we've heard that the European and overseas visitors are the problem, and then we've also heard that with our camping ambassadors, I think a year or two ago, that that's not necessarily the case, and that sometimes Kiwis are more inclined to make messes and stuff. From your guys' point of view, because I feel if we're making these deliberations about
We haven't
freedom
started
campers,
deliberations yet.
we need to know who's the problems that are being caused. Are they local problems, New Zealand problems, or from overseas visitors?
Oh.
Right, that's for deliberations, Martin, so we won't cover those things now.
But is that information going to be available to us during the deliberation?
Absolutely.
What was that?
Yeah, I guess.
That kind of information, will it be available during the deliberations? I think it will be crucial to have a whole lot of information.
So I'm happy to answer kind of.
Oh, yeah, no, okay.
Which would be that we would have to speak to staff before deliberations, and it would be anecdotal because we don't keep any actual record of nationality. So it will be very much taken as
Hearsay.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I raise it is that, yeah, there are perceptions around, and.
And at a high level, I'd say that we don't find a general thing.
But it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Who it is. It doesn't matter who created it. It doesn't matter where they come from Mars. It's the fact
Right,
that
I don't want to get us to get into trouble here, starting to have discussions which should just wait until deliberations. And I'm sure whatever information that staff have will be brought to us so that, and we can raise certain criteria being.
I have another appointment at quarter past, so I'm going to have to miss Mr. Stimpson's. He's arrived.
He's arrived.
He's arrived. Oh,
John
Mr.
Morrison, get the
Stetson.
room.
Oh, okay, Mr. Stetson. Michael,
Mr. Simpson's just handed me this package, he's asked me to do hard copies for all of you for his presentation. I'll go as quickly as I can.
Well, we just have the top page because there are two at the top page.
thank you for making it. We're just not far away from.
But that's, I'm not quite sure what I'm on about. Firstly, I sent in a submission, but I had an hour and a half from when I found out that it was to be called and when the close-off date was. So I had an hour and a half to type it all up. And you might look at it and think it's a little bit gobbledygook. What I've done is I've recut and pasted it without adding or changing and put it under headings. And that's the kind of what they're copying, so it's probably more relevant to use that one. Anyway, while she's going to photocopy it, what I did discover was that the Minister, Mr. David Clark, Dr. David Clark, issued on the 18th of March 2021, which is pretty recent, that Standards New Zealand has advised me that the standard, that's the NZ 5465201, is a voluntary document. It is not currently cited in legislation or regulation. This means the compliance with the standard is not mandatory. Standards New Zealand has assured me that they will endeavour to clarify any misconceptions around the legal status and enforceability of NZ 5465201 that come to their attention. Now, I'm not advocating for the council not being involved in the excrement deposit in the greater area, which I'm absolutely against it. And what I have determined is that there's something between 140 and 500 tonnes of sewage being dumped in the Hauraki district from Waihi North per year. The Hillary Commission did a survey, something like 487,000 people visited, tourists who were foot trampers, mountain bikers. This is not freedom campers. And if you calculate that out of a third of a kg per person per day, you get 140 tonnes dumped in the area. Now that's quite significant. In the Freedom of Camping Act, section 20, number 4, oh no, sorry, section 20, number 4, it states that that you cannot deposit any waste in or on the environment except in receptacles. The receptacles are distinctly defined in 24, I think it is, section 24, they have to be toilets or rubbish tins or waste dumps provided either by the territorial authority or by DOC. So either people don't come here, don't go to the toilet, or in the greater area, you've got to address that there's maybe 200, maybe 300 tonnes of sewage being dumped. And your Freedom Camping Act, I'm not criticising it, your Freedom Camping Act does not address the greater area at all. It talks about the big rule, but there's no big rule in the bylaw, there's no big rule in the legislation. So how are you going to address 140 to 500 tonnes of sewage? In the Act, it is required that the territorial authority provide the receptacles. Therefore, somehow there has to be some tax on the tourists, but essentially the council is obliged or obligated to provide sufficient toilets in the greater area to accommodate that tonnage.
If I could ask the question, where does it say in the Act that we have to provide the receptacle?
It says that in the Freedom of Camping Act, section 20, number 4.
I didn't hear that in what you said.
Pardon?
I didn't hear that in what you said.
Yes,
So that wasn't what I understood you to be quoting from the Act.
No,
it just said,
the Act,
no, you said that it had to be in a receptacle. It didn't say we had to provide it.
where are we?
You got that thing?
I'm just looking at that, seems to relate to conservation land.
Both territorial and conservation land.
That's just a definition for a waste receptacle.
Anyway, the receptacle is, in this section, that's 20, section 20, offences,
Yeah.
number 4. In this section, waste receptacle means a receptacle or facility that is provided by a local authority or the department for purposes disposing of waste in rubbish tin, public toilet or bulk unit. The TCDC must, as compelled by the Freedom of Camping Act, must supply a receptacle or facility that is provided by a local authority or the department for purposes disposing of waste, that is a rubbish bin, public toilet or bulk unit. That the TCDC does not supply a receptacle or facility that is provided by a local authority or the department for purposes of disposing waste, a rubbish bin, public toilet or unit, the TCDC is burdened with providing the receptacles, or the TCDC is committing an offence under the section 24 by not providing receptacles, so that the TCDC becomes materially contributing to section 21B2, which prohibits deposits waste in or on the area other than in an appropriate waste receptacle, and 21B deposits waste generated while freedom camping in or on a local authority area other than in an appropriate waste receptacle. There must be sufficient and plenty of receptacles spread widely and enough of them to capture the public discharge over the whole TCDC area. So no discharge nor waste nor rubbish goes to the ground in restricted areas and not in open areas either. I mean, this requires the council to grab this issue by the horns and say, yes, we do have a lot more obligations than we perhaps thought. It may cost the council a lot to provide more toilets, but the thing is the tourists should be taxed to pay for it, and everyone should be thinking, well, we're upgrading our attitude to a hygienic environment, and with the tonnages that can be estimated, Hillary Commission, 1999, made it quite clear that something like 478,000 visitors per year, and that's in the whole district from Waihi to the north. So it has to be addressed, and I'm not demanding anyone here to touch this personally, but the council must grab it by the horns because they must know that that tonnage is being deposited, and it says it is not to be deposited in or on the environment, which means putting it on the ground by a spade is also technically illegal.
Okay, your point's been made, thank you. Have you got any other points that you wish to make?
Pardon?
Do you have any other points you wish to make?
Well, I've gone through a whole lot of points and I'm probably over in the 5 minutes, so I wasn't really
No, you've got.
expecting good ones.
I just thought I'd move you to another subject.
Have you seen this one? From the minister?
Can I still do that?
No, I haven't seen that one. I'm going to pass it round, please, Gary. What's your, do you want to make another point?
Well, the other point is that if the council does have this obligation to provide the receptacles, then it's not for the public to really have an opinion because it's enshrined in the Freedom of Camping Act to do so. Therefore, you have to look at how do you get that money back from the tourists.
So basically, in the Freedom of Camping Act, if you're talking about depositing in receptacles, you have to find a receptacle that to deposit in rather than just go and deposit on the grass.
Yeah.
If you understand. Anyway.
Yeah, and also getting more particular, in Williams Avenue, where I come from, there is an area which is called the blue mapped area in the Williams car park. That's 140 car parks. Now, any tourist coming in from the bottom end of town and coming and parking in there, reading the bylaw, seeing that it's a blue designated area, not designated, but a blue area for freedom camping, would not know that if they did not go to the other end of the car park and read the sign that says designated car parks only and you're only allowed to park in a designated car park, they would not know necessarily that they were actually breaking the rule. And I'm saying the rule is wrong because it is unfairly not informing people that if they're parking in a freedom camping area but not specifically in one of the 5 designated car parks, that they will be liable for a $200 fine.
Can I just add something? This thing you got from the minister, it's referring to self-containment of motor caravans and the attached reports. It's talking about the definition of what is self-contained. And look, it's a complicated legal issue.
Yeah.
And
Rightio, well, we can't go.
So I don't, so
We
all
got
I'm
any
saying,
questions?
no, but all I'm saying is I think we need to look at this because I don't know if it's necessarily correct what you're saying, but it's very complicated.
Thank you.
I mean, we've got things called green doggy bags. So I think it's time that someone, perhaps the council, could write in an official capacity to the Auckland University for someone doing a thesis to do some research that find out what is a practical way for people to manage their sewerage. Now, we've got green doggy bags for people. Why can't we have cellulose bags in a small plastic pot with a lid, and you deposit in that, and then the cellulose bag, because it can break down, can go into the sewerage, and then you can actually effectively dispose of it. And people can be sort of trained to think, well, we have to make this effort in order to protect the environment from the tonnages that are being as feral dumping, which is toxic and involves a $10,000 fine.
Are you a freedom camper?
Pardon?
Are you a freedom camper?
No. No, and I think freedom campers, you've got to recognise that there will be a lot more of them. And the Bill of Rights is very strong about the right of travel and freedom to travel. And the Freedom Camping Act defers to the Bill of Rights having preference. So the clauses in the Bill of Rights do have preference. So the Freedom Camping Act has to obey the travel freedom. You see, it's quite complicated, but the thing is, I've written it all out as best I can so that you can clearly get your heads around it. But I would like to think that the council will take the initiative to say, look, enough's enough. We're going to have to come up with some kind of device that functions for humans when they're in the environment, and the quantity of dumping that can be fairly reasonably assessed of hundreds of tonnes is just not acceptable in a pristine area.
So you mentioned Woolham's Ave. Do you think that freedom campers could be parking in Pound Street, for
Well,
instance?
the map basically states yes, you can.
Pardon?
The map states that you can, because that's a freedom camping area.
Yeah, but so I'm asking the question, do you think they should park somewhere else, like Pound Street?
Well, there isn't really anywhere else, but they've only got 5 designated car parks. And I think what the council is doing is if anyone's not on the 5, if they park somewhere else in the Freedom Camping area in Williams Avenue, they will incur a $200 fine for being in the wrong place.
Okay.
Now that's not, now obviously there's a 9 o'clock cut-off, and that's probably designed to give shoppers and other people a chance to compete for the car parks. But invariably the car park is very seldom even near full. It's usually close to empty. And the thing is that there is a certain amount of competition. In other words, if 200 freedom campers came to Coromandel for an event and they all went into the Williams car park, they could fill it right up. But that's so rare that I don't think it needs to be legislated again.
Well, the Motor Vanners Association actually have their own site.
Pardon?
The Motor Vanners Association have their own site in Coromandel, which they own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually they're private sites, so the bylaw wouldn't necessarily apply, because the Freedom Camping Act doesn't apply to private land.
Right, are there any questions of Michael? Are there any further points you wish to make, Michael?
Pardon?
Are there any further points you wish to make? No one has any questions for you.
Well, in Capana Road, which is adjacent to Woolham's, it's exactly the same situation. You've got 5 car parks, but the whole road is shown as being a freedom camping zone.
You've already outlined Woolham's Ave.
Yeah, so there's both those areas.
Yeah, no, got that.
Right. So, and another point that I think is very, very important is most of the freedom camping restricted zones, areas, are adjacent to a public toilet. So why is the focus on ensuring that everyone has a toilet when in actual fact they can just open their car door and walk to the local toilet and deal with it that way? It's unfair to prosecute people who are within walking distance of a toilet in an arbitrary manner, especially for a standard that actually doesn't have any mandatory standard. And I think what the council should be really looking at is, although they say the big rule is, it's kind of I can appreciate that's hopeful what the council wants people to do, but the council should be addressing what they're doing beyond the restricted areas in the greater wider area, because the bylaw does not address the wider overall council open areas at all.
Okay.
The bylaw doesn't, and it must. And then the focus of the council regulators and officers that issue the tickets should be on catching people depositing excrement and prosecuting them, rather than just giving them a technical fine, not quite being in a designated area, but in the car park next to it, even though the rest of the car park's empty.
Yeah, no, I've got that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, I've got it all sort of written in here.
Yeah, no, your additional information's been very well laid out, so thank you for that.
I mean, I'm trying to be helpful, and I think you'll find that there's actually a lot of stuff in there that if you follow the way I've gone through it, that you can put together quite a strong bylaw and actually strengthen up the excrement containment issue.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
Appreciate that, thank you.
which really is a non-depositing excrement issue, rather than the technicalities of the ins and outs of whether your certificate has expired yesterday or didn't expire yesterday. I mean, the council give a ticket for not having a Freedom Camping certificate current date, but they never look to see whether there's the plumbing and the Freedom Camping containment is actually functioning, and that's the whole purpose of the Act. It's to do with having a clean environment so that under the Bill of Rights, when people visit, and there will be a lot more people coming in the future, so the council has an opportunity to make a very strong bylaw. I would say enhance it strongly, like it should be four times as big and have a lot more clout to address these issues that I'm sure you'll all each want to have in that bylaw. I'm not worried about what the Freedom Campers think.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well done. You've actually got an incredible amount of work there, Michael.
Pardon?
You've done an incredible amount of work on that one.
Well, I think it's helpful, and I would like to see at the end of the day, you've got a much stronger, more powerful bylaw that addresses the excrement dumping, and people just stop doing it, because it is important.
We're hopeful that the proposed changes to the law will have a consequential effect on improving the situation overall. So thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Do we need to do that as a late submission? Or
we've already done that.
we've done that?
Yeah, we've done it.
He was already
Right,
Thank you, Robin.
He'd already put his submission in.
oh no, but because he was here before, because he hadn't done it. Leave that longer.
But that's fine, that's fine, that's fine.
I now close, anyone close the meeting? Thank you very much, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Sandra.
Awesome.